Hello and welcome to ARC360's Looking Ahead digital event series. Before starting, we'd just like to say thank you to our corporate partners, the ASF, EMACS, CAPS, Copart, EMACS, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Merca, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams, as well as our partners, Aztec, Innovation Group, Indasa, the Green Part Specialists, and our latest partner, Casco. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy this webinar.
So welcome along, everybody. Fantastic to have you join us. And of course, we're in conversation today with Leon Kubland, owner of HTH Dynamics, and Paul Smith, Managing Director of Fix Auto Loughborough. So one size does not fit all is the theme of the session. And again, this is the ARC360 Looking Ahead digital event, second event thus far today. We had Doug of Sherwin-Williams on earlier, and all the recordings can be caught up with over the period of the week, or the conversation taking place in the LinkedIn forum that we have. So just before we go too far, again, it's already been said, but a huge thank you to our corporate partners and our partners that you can see on the screen there before you. And of course, a little disclaimer that we always like to do before any of our sessions. These people have given up their time and energies to share their thoughts with you. So the views and opinions expressed during the following webinar are those of the individual contributors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the contributor's employer, organisation, committee, or other group or individual. Please respect any all contributions, and we encourage you to join the conversation via the interactive functions available. So let's bring it back to us, and here we go. So thank you very much for joining us today, Paul and Leon. Great to see you both in such fine form. And thank you to everyone who's attending and joining us. So this is a bit of a fireside chat, really, this session. Nothing too formal, nothing too structured. And what we're going to do is just share thoughts, ideas around, realistically, repairer models in the market today. What works, what perhaps could do with some improvement, and essentially just look at the different business models and what works for who. So we'd encourage you all to get involved in the conversation. I know these guys are keen to field your questions. So any questions can go in the Q&A panel. And of course, keep us posted in the chat if you agree, disagree, or would like to share your own thoughts there. Please do fire something in the chat there. It's always great to have people engaged, and when you're sitting on this side of the lens, it's always nice to know that there's somebody there. So I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves now. So both coming at it from different backgrounds, if you like. So Paul, I will come to you first, if I may.
Okay, Mark. Right, thank you, and hello everybody. So off we go. So quick introduction of my checkered history to date. I left university, Nottingham, with a degree in plant biochemistry, and the top and bottom of it was I got involved with rallying while I was there at the motor club, and I ended up with 3 jobs to go to, and I never took any of them, so I couldn't afford to repair my car, my rally car, when I had an accident if I'd gone and worked on graduate trainee money. So I decided to try a garage myself, thinking if it failed, I had 2 years, I could still get on the gravy train of being a graduate trainee. So that was the beginning, and it's gone on from there. I've had various other businesses in my time as well. I've had a manufacturing business that manufactured welding sheets for the industry. And also we had a laser game centre in Leicester, which did very, very well, which we ended up selling to an Australian company. So my experience is very diverse and very business orientated, which is really, I suppose, how I ended up getting into consultancy during the 90s, which was, again, just by helping people and trying to help people get better. I think the business side helped me an awful lot. And, you know, my main consultancy drive was working on the estimate, just getting it right. You know, learn to justify, do what you say, and get the correct price for the correct job. You know, and the top and bottom is, at the end of the day, you've always got to remember you've got a customer to look after, you know, which means that you have to be fair to them, whether it's an insurer or an individual. Otherwise, they don't come back. It's just business philosophy. I think that one of the best things I did in 2004, we joined Fix Auto, which I don't think we've ever looked back from. It's an easy equation for me, so I could see quite clearly insurers were consolidating. And if I wasn't at a table, I'd be a minnow out in the sea. So we joined up, and the equation was very simple. For me to get to the sort of person who could get me to the table, I needed to pay a lot of money for somebody with the right connections. Even with the right connections, what did he have to offer? I had 3 body shops at the time. 3 body shops really wasn't what the insurers or work providers were looking for. So I needed to rethink it. Hence, we joined Fix, and it's been great. So it's tapped me into a high caliber team. That's, you know, we've got Ian Pugh at the head, followed with loads of really good guys that can help us and do wonderful things. So it's a great network. I think for me, efficiency comes in terms of capability performance, by providing one-stop shop and, you know, segmentation. The customer we're going to have is going to be quite interesting. You know, and the whole focus through consultancy and my business is focused on business profitability. And I'm a great believer in karma. If you treat people, you'll get treated the same way back. So I always try and help people and do that. And I believe the other bit is the world is a jigsaw. Massive jigsaw, and all the pieces are out there. It's just finding the right piece of the jigsaw for that particular bit of the operation, as we'll see as we go through our discussion today. So I think that's me in a potted history.
And a great potted history it was too. And just in terms of context again, Paul, the business at the moment, Fix Auto Loughborough?
Fix Auto Loughborough, we've got 20,000 square feet. It's 3 businesses bought and merged into one. We have a standard body shop with 2 booths, jig and traditional body shop capability, and 10,000 square feet. We have got an STL sliding booth, and we've got a big commercial booth in there for doing big trucks, so we can move vans, because vans are becoming bigger with, well, as we've seen with Amazon, etc. So we can provide a proper one-stop shop with all the solutions, hopefully.
Great stuff. Thank you very much indeed. And Leon, over to you, my friend.
Well, it's not quite as exciting as Paul's history, but mine started back in '85 as a YTS painter with one of the infamous government schemes at the time. From there, worked my way through, and in about 90, somewhere around about there, Seawoods at the time brought the site I was working for, which was Gowings, and I grew quite well within the Seawood group. Sort of going through every area of the workshop, every area of the admin, into office, into manager position. 2005 decided to broaden my horizons a little bit more, moved into a little bit of consultancy really for a couple of friends, and then got offered an opportunity of working with a prestige repairer in Poole. So most of you will probably be aware that that's probably well known from most of you, which is Poole Accident Repair. At the time, it was owned almost as a dealer body shop by the owner of Poole Audi. That later separated later on in life. But I spent 15 years in the manufacture arena, shall we say. So that was purely manufacturer approvals from day one, few insurance approvals, but diverse way of working with high-end dealer, which later became a Volvo dealer as well. And then we moved into the prestige market with all sorts of very glamorous approvals and very glamorous workshops, for those of you who have ever seen the pictures. So I sort of got a bit of a rounding of all of it. Later on through the sort of career there, we also purchased Yeovil Accident Repair, which come completely different to what Paul was sort of designed for. Yeovil was a insurance based, but we changed that over the years and took it to where it was at my party last year. And through the way, I can safely say that I've come across all areas, whether it be a man in the van, which we used to have, whether it be a clever repair centre, which we actually built, whether it be a smart repair centre, which we also created a new company with that as well, smart pods, prestige repair, insurance repair. I've been very lucky that I've seen all areas of the arena that we all thoroughly enjoy on a daily basis. To the point now where I've created a company working for myself. It's called HTH, which is abbreviated for Here to Help. And the concept of Here to Help is to, as it says on the tin, really, I'm going out and helping repairers reach the next level. And it doesn't matter what that is, whether that be customer journey, operation on the shop floor, products, materials, MD mentoring, health and safety. I work alongside a company called Canopy Online. We do a lot of work there as well. So it's all areas, and I do the bits that the owners and the drivers predominantly don't have time to do, or sometimes, as we've all been there, when you're in the woods, you cannot see through the trees. So a fresh pair of eyes that I won't say I'm non-controversial, because I probably am in many ways. However, being spade to spade in my world, it'll always be that way. Sometimes a bit of sort of language like that can be a breath of fresh air to many of these people. So I've only been trading for 6 to 8 months now, and someone threw COVID into the mix, which has obviously caused a few situations that were unexpected in the business plan. But it's all going well, and helping a few clients at present, going from anywhere between health and safety, rebranding, customer journey, or just writing simple processes. And that's where I sit today.
Great stuff. Well, there you go. We've got a wealth of experience. Well, from your two sides anyway, and then there's me. So great. Thank you very much indeed for those introductions. And again, that provides some great context to those tuning in. I'm sure most people are familiar with your names anyway from the industry. First and foremost, then, we're going to try and get people involved in the conversation. So let's launch our first poll. So again, people, if you can get involved, attendees, that'd be fantastic. So what are your top 3 fundamental criteria for success in modern day repair? Multiple choice. So tick 3, culture, leadership, marketing, people, processes, products, equipment, relationships, standards, technology. And I'm sure I've missed many, but cast your votes now. Let's see where we get to. And this will just give us a little gauge. By the way, all polls we do anonymous, so do not fear any repercussions from that. I won't call it out live on air. So some votes coming in. We'll just give it a couple of seconds there to settle. And then we'll start talking about modern day repair requirements. And I know you guys have got opinions on that. So more votes coming in. If anyone's got thoughts, we'll call a halt to that. All those people. All right, so let's share the results. Here we are then. So, people, top 3 fundamental criteria for success in a modern body shop. People take it at 64% of the votes. Processes, 45%, and technology, 45%. Okay. Any surprises there, Paul?
No, I'd be exactly the same. People are the most important asset you have. Treat them right, and hopefully they treat you right back, and you get a marketing edge. We spend a lot of time in our business on investing in people. We have a tutor who comes into our shop we've stepped him up, actually. He used to come and see us every quarter, and he'd work on the management team. And when COVID started, we used Mike Monaghan and this guy we've used for years, and we've stepped him up to every month now, and we've moved into the workshop. So we're actually mentoring and helping them through their things, because we've got lots of strange things going on with COVID. People are seeing things very different, panicking about things. So we used it to try and reassure our staff that we're serious about staying and that there's nothing to worry about. And also find out what their things are and see if there's anything we can do to help them. See, at the end of the day, it's a team basis. I've got some great people that work with me, and I want to make sure they carry on working with me.
And processes and technology, again, the sort of second and third place there, if you like, or joint second.
Process technology, yeah, you've got to have technology to move forward, I think. We'll certainly have, because you won't be able to repair cars without that bit. And I think the analogy is, if you go back to when I started with this business, you know, we were a body shop, and I learned how to repair metal and paint it. That was the accident repair. In the 1970s, we saw some hero put air conditioning on a car, which immediately added £1,000 to the cost of any repair. Then again, then a few years later, we had SRS systems, which were another 1,500 quid a repair minimum. So all of a sudden, to do the same repair, I had plus £2,500 on it. And you wind the clock forward to the day where we've got electronics and virtually avionics on the car, you know, and ECUs coming in at $2,500 per unit with wiring faults. You know, the actual accident repair, as we understood it when we started, is very, very different now to what it is. And the accident repair of the job is probably a third of the old-fashioned job. So technology is incredibly important, yes.
Now hold that thought on the avionics, because I'll come back to you on that, because I know you've got a great little analogy that you use when it comes to processes.
Yes.
Leon, again, so, you know, looking at obviously the results there,
Yeah.
people, processes, technology seem to be front of mind for everyone. You know, would you agree with those sort of sentiments, having been where you've been in terms of...
I think we all need to realise that without people, we don't have businesses. That's the number one factor from the outset. And without great people, you cannot create a great business. It really is that straightforward. I think the big issue that's been on the horizon now for many years is the technical side of the accident repairs, and the fact that we can no longer have the same caliber of people that we possibly used to have back in the day when I joined the industry, because it's far more technical. And it does an awful lot given to repair methods in certain areas. And you do need people that have got the correct mindset to overcome this. You know, we've all been in workshops very recently where everything's via a computer nowadays. You know, my first job was on a mini metro, and I don't remember it even having an electrical dashboard back then. Things have changed dramatically, and you need the right people with the right mindset to overcome technology as it progresses, because we all know it hasn't stopped as of yet. It's going to keep going and going and going.
Now, you both, when we talk about people, you've both mentioned mindsets, which is a very interesting thing, as well as obviously skill sets. But, you know, I had a podcast with Paul Cunningham, I think it was recently, where we were talking about culture, and that was one of the big things that he was talking about. If you can get the culture right, arguably, you know, you're onto something successful as a business. Would you agree with that? Is it all about culture and teamwork within a repairer specifically, Paul?
I think it's an absolute essential. I do, because it's quite interesting, because obviously we started our journey with people probably 8 years ago using this guy we use from Birmingham. And if I'm honest, it's been an amazing one. And he used to come and say, "Ooh, dear, you got some problems there." And we had all the traditional body shop stuff, you know, the them and us, the productive thing that we're trying to hoodwink them all the time, and all the rest of the stuff that goes on. And this last year, he's come, he says, "Cool, you know what, you're actually starting to win." And it's quite interesting. We got one panel beater who's a traditional panel beater. And all of a sudden, because we're winning with everybody else, he's become marginalised. And because he's become marginalised, he's becoming compliant. And he's actually joining our culture now and really trying to work with the others. So it does work, and it's very powerful. And for me as a boss, it's a very simple philosophy. If I've got happy people, they're going to work better for me. Better is more efficient, which helps my business. Which means in return, if I can get it to work properly, I can reward them more, and I build a stronger business. And then I lock them in because they can't afford to go anywhere else, because I'm paying them more because they're doing more for me. So it's a very simple business model.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's great.
Sorry, Leon, would you sort of agree with that whole culture aspect from all the various sides of the industry that you've seen?
The culture is paramount, of course it is, and I think what's happened in the last decade or so is people are now understanding, owner drivers are understanding that the culture starts with them. So an example would be, we used to tell people to do X, Y, and Z back in the old days, and you just get out and do it. Whereas now the leader, the driver, the owner is now a representation of the culture, and they need to live and breathe it. It's that straightforward, because people's attitudes have changed towards life, haven't they? They really have. Our expectations are far greater, and our knowledge is far greater as well. We all now know an awful lot more. We know our rights, we know what we want, and we've all set our own goals, whether they be personal, business, or whatever the case may be. So if the owner, the driver, the MD, the general manager, whatever the case may be, if he's not portraying the culture of a business, you cannot expect the guys and the girls below you to actually be fulfilling that culture. And without it, you're pretty unstuck.
Yeah, absolutely. And just while we're on that subject, then how important is it to have, a leadership hierarchy? And by that, arguably, traditionally, the Bodyshop manager has been kind of, the all singing, all dancing, all knowing, person who leads the business to the future, the person who does the day-to-day hands-on and oversees everything. Is that now changed? Are we moved away from that? And are we now having visionary leaders within business, as well as the body shops and the body shop managers, and then the tiers below there, etc.? What's your thoughts there, Liam?
For me, a few years ago now, I went through a coaching seminar with a number of other people in the industry, and one of the main things I got from it at the end was it's a team event. So the job title scenario is really out the window nowadays. It's about what is the skill set of this person, of the owner, of the driver, and what can he achieve. The fact that there's a senior management and there used to be middle management and lower management, I think it's in the past for me personally. I don't even see job titles being that relevant nowadays. If you're a leader, you will naturally grow to be a leader, and people will follow you, respect you. I don't think you can teach it. I don't think you can give yourself a title and then say, yes, I'm now the owner, because it doesn't work like that. Life is far more complicated in this day and age. So for me, job titles, middle management, senior management, yes, they're relevant when it comes to making a decision, but do they really need a job title to be able to make a decision?
Great stuff. Great thoughts. Right, Paul, now we're going to jump around a little bit. So we're going to move on from the people side of things, and I want to talk about processes, because I loved your analogy and the bits that you've used around Henry Ford's bomber plant. So let's talk a little bit about that. Explain what you mean by that for us.
Well, like I said at the start, life's full of bits of jigsaw, and it's finding the right ones. And what used to really intrigue me was the number of really good people who come into accident repair. Insurers in the past, loads of them, come in and then exited because they can't make the returns. And I've always found that very interesting. I've been looking for an answer for that, and it came up on the TV one morning watching, I think it was yesterday, and there was a story about, it wasn't a story, it was a documentary about how in 1941 the US government wanted more bombers because they realized they were going to war. And of course, they go to industry leaders for solutions, and they went to Henry Ford, and they put this thing together to build B-24s, which were Liberator bombers. He wanted to put them to build these things, and so what he did, he put this factory together down at a place called Willow Run, and basically it was just a farm in the middle of nowhere, and he owned the land previously, and he put this factory up, and it's worth looking at. All the stories are on the internet, but it's absolutely fantastic. They built this plant in 7 months. It was 35 million square feet. The building that's 80 acres. It was split into manufacturing and assembly, and it had an airport attached to it that covered 1,064 acres, which equates to 120 miles of runway. So just as a feat, before we even get into the bit of building the bombers, which had the jigsaw bit in, it was just hell of a feat. And in its heyday, 42,500 people worked there. Now, this was conceived by one of the Ford engineers who was a mass production guru of his day. And he just worked on something called principles of standardization, which says continuously orderly flow punctuated by stops at assembly stations where workers / machines perform repetitive tasks. That's what it is. Now, when they designed this plant, it was designed, he said they'd get one bomber out every hour. Now, bear in mind, these bombers had 1,022,000 parts on them. That's hell of a feat. And of course, bearing in mind, you've got the people who made it, Consortium, the Liberator, they couldn't get anywhere near that. And so everyone laughed at him. And it was a bit of an embarrassment for him at the start because they couldn't get this bomber per hour out. And they called another guy in from a different slightly walk of life. And he came down, looked at it and said, well, I'll tell you why it's not working. You're modifying the planes as you go through. And they said, what do you mean? He says, well, instead of following a process where you put A in and it goes through all the way through B, X, Y, Z, you're going to Y and going, hang on, we need to modify this, send it back around again. And I thought, oh, yeah, this is making sense. And they gave, the big issue was the radar kept updating. So when the new radar model was available, they'd send them all back to the radar department to get modified, which buggered the flow up. And you think about it, this is exactly what happens to a body shop. How many times do we have to send things back and go wrong? Because it goes through and all of a sudden somebody notices there's a chassis rail bent. So the process has to start again. And you can see why accident doesn't repair for mass production, which is what everyone tries to achieve with it. And I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And the modifications that went on, it's a great, great story. It really is. And these guys just were, and in the end, when they got it right, they were producing a bomber every 55 minutes off the line. And I'll show you, there's a picture here, if I can get it to show. That's the actual plant, if I can get there. That building there, hang on, let me get a thing like there to there is 1 mile long. That's the plant.
Wow.
That's how streamlined it was. And the video is amazing. They made their own pop rivets on there. It is truly amazing. It really is. So just the feat of what they did. And they built 8,800 bombers compared to the 9,000 the original factory built with a consortium of 3 of them.
Amazing stuff. And there you go. I suppose it rings true in terms of a process within a body shop. Now, Leon, over to you.
Yep.
You've obviously, as I said, you've seen it from many different angles in terms of inside a body shop. What's your thoughts on what Paul's just said in terms of that process? And is it a production facility?
I think the answer is yes and no, because what we're trying to do is not rocket science. And although I say we're not building aircraft, and some of these vehicles is very close to it, I think that the issue that we do have is that the industry changes every 10 minutes. A workshop will change every 10 minutes. And when you're, dare I say, use the word coalface, when you're on the coalface, you deal with an awful lot of situations which are unprocessable. You can't deal with the human interaction that we have. When we all go to the factories and we see these vehicles being made, they're state of the art. Of course they are, because they've got billions of pounds worth of robots doing it. However, if you've got a painter that turns up on a Monday morning that's had a row with his wife over the weekend and his football team have lost, there's a different frame of mind there. And we then go back to the mindset, because that guy going to be on his best for a Monday morning when he's probably just had all day drinking, watching his favourite team lose? Possibly not. And is there anything you can do about that? Not a great deal. You've got to assume that's a one-off, isn't it? So I think processes are fantastic, but there must always be an element to say that you need to deviate. I use a very simple, I won't say a process, but a very simple analogy about having parameters. So the more technical the job is, the lower the parameters are. And if you're going down the one line down through the middle and you're doing something extremely delicate, your parameters all but zero. If you're actually painting a car on a Monday morning, your parameters are perhaps a little bit wider, but not a great deal. Now, providing no one flits below the parameters or above the parameters, then you've got the correct mindset and you shouldn't have to readdress the process that you've got in place. But you need the solid foundation of a process to start with. And that's something that the industry lacks in more areas than I thought, should I say. So I think we've all got processes, or we think we've all got processes, but how many people are showing their vision of what the process really is? Because we've all worked for people that said, you've got to do it this way, but you don't really understand what that way is until you use a visionary situation to do it, whether that be written or pictures or whatever the case may be. Showing the process is far greater than writing one and handing it out when they join. And that would be my take on what a process looks like, whether it be aeroplanes or whether it be the latest vehicle on the road today.
Hi everyone, we hope you're enjoying this webinar. Just a quick thank you once again to all of our corporate partners and partners on screen now. Now back to the show.
Great stuff. Now tell us a little bit about, a lot of people look at the world of repair. Paul's coming at it from one side, if you don't mind me saying, Paul, in terms of, kind of a volume repairer, if you like. When you were at Paul specifically, Leon, very much kind of manufacturer driven.
Yeah.
One side probably looks at the other and thinks, crikey, that's the way to go, or that's, the way to do things. Just tell us then from your side, Paul, and I can see you're both smiling now. But, what are your kind of, thoughts around the model you operate, if you like? You are obviously what you are in terms of a business and it works for you. So just give us a little bit more of an insight, really.
Well, I think circumstances have quite a bit of effect and opportunities, but basically we're an insurance body repair shop doing retail work. And because we're linked to insurers, I suppose our model would have to be described as high volume, low margin. We accept low rates to get the volume off the insurers, which is how we work. And then we just work the model to try and make sure it works and make some money, really. But, everyone tries to be is very professional and do everything right. It's got to be done right. That doesn't really help anyone if we don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Those things don't change. And from the other side of the fence, Leon, a lot of people look at prestige repairers and think, "Oh, lovely, that's for me." Tell us the reality of it all.
The reality is, it may not be for everyone. It may not be for everyone. If I give you a scenario that I'm just going through at the moment with a company that I'm sure you won't mind me mentioning. So I've been working with a company called Dorking Accident Repair for about 5 months now, and their culture was insurance driven, because the culture again it starts there. What do we need to do? And Mark O'Keefe, the owner, what he wanted to do was go more manufacturer alignment and look at the other side of the industry. Well, where we had to start was not with the prestige approvals or any other manufacturer approvals, was actually the culture of the business. Because like Paul has just mentioned, it really is high volume in the insurance world, and it probably needs to be, because that's where the numbers dictate. Whereas the prestige manufacturer way, and it doesn't have to be prestige, but just manufacturer way, isn't necessarily high volume. It's a different culture, it's a different ethos of what people need to achieve. And we always say about working smarter, not harder. Is that the case? I don't think the return is much greater in a manufacturer aligned body shop. And, we laughed and joked about it when we spoke the other week. If you take the concept of, if you break a moulding on a Citroen Saxo, it'll cost you £15 to replace it, because you've got to get it in and get it out ready for the next one. And then you go and break a moulding on a Volvo XC90, which will probably cost you £400. So just because we've got better recovery rates, and it looks like we get better labour and we get more paint in the manufacture world. I think it's all relevant. I think they're just two body shops operating in two separate segments of this industry, but both segments need the people in there.
Perfect little segue into the next poll as well. And by the way, attendees, post those chats, post those questions if you've got anything for these guys to take a look at. So again, just a very much an opinion piece right now. So right at this moment in time, if you had to pick one, what type of repair solution do you think is best suited to market? And I use that term best suited very, very loosely. It's basically an opinion piece there. Again, anonymous answers. So static sites, so mobile, semi-permanent, so your kind of your pods or prefab little units there. Static site fast track, so 24-hour repairs. Static site, if you like, traditional small. Static site traditional medium, or static site large. We'll just let some of the votes come in. So it moves us on nicely, really, in terms of the various models that play in the market. And we'll just gauge a couple more opinions if anyone's got any more. They're coming in still, which is always good. Interesting as well. Okay, share the results. So there we go. Static site medium size, 47% of the answers. Static site fast track, 21%, and then static site small and static site large, 15% respectively each. Okay, Paul, you've seen, again, the world from many different sides. You're running two effectively different operations yourself right at this moment in time. But, you know, what's your thoughts around the kind of different models at play at the moment within the sector?
Okay, well, I'd agree with the poll. I think static medium's what you need. I don't think we have the skill set generally to run big shops. You know, you need a big corporate, I think, to hang one of those big static sessions together. I think it's important that you understand the other dynamics. You know, smart repair is brilliant, but it doesn't really work. You know, all it does, it provides, I think, it's a quick answer, not a solution, but it has fantastic CSI, which I think is why some of the work providers like it, because you know, if you smash your car up, you can have it fixed in 2 days' time, sir. Bloody hell, that's absolutely fantastic. We'll have some of that, please. And he gets it back and he doesn't even look at it, but he's just so pleased at getting his car back. And then there's a problem with it when it goes back to, maybe it's a lease car, it goes back and it's a poor repair, or maybe it comes in for another repair into a professional repair centre, and there are problems because we can't blend onto that panel because it's got a poor repair from before. And everyone seems to let that go. And I'll just throw it, you know, is the insurer really picking his liability up by using those sort of people when they don't deliver a true solution? You know, it is a quick answer. It's not a solution. So I'm very anti those. And of course, the worst thing of the lot is they take bread and butter out of our shops. But to make a business work, you need a full spectrum of work. If somebody comes and pinches cherries out of different bits of the work, they're obviously going to be the most profitable bits invariably, which means that the big horrible jobs get left. Then you can't get people to work on them because they're big horrible jobs, and I'm fed up with fixing big horrible jobs. I want to break it up with some little ones, boss. And it goes on. Then it takes you back to the analogy of the steam age, when steam was finishing. British Rail could not find people to fix their locomotives, which is why they decayed so fast, because it was a filthy job. And that's what's going to happen to the body shop if we're not careful. You know, so there's lots of thought-provoking stuff and thoughts to put onto the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sure there'd be many more arguments the other way. So yeah, no problem.
Absolutely.
And and Leon, you know, from your point of view, again, all these kind of different, you've been party to many of them, the different business models previously, anyway, in your own sort of career. Yeah. So you know, from where you sit, everyone got a place in some way, shape, or form in the industry.
I think everyone does have a place. I think we revert back again to people cultures, and skill set. Is there a place for a smart repairer? Yes, there is. But if we all reflect back what smart repair was introduced to do many, many years ago now, it was based around a repair to be carried out with inside an A4 size bit of paper. Now, we've all seen the man on the street in your front garden quite happily now paint a wing, a door, and maybe a bumper on your vehicle. Is that really a smart repair? And the answer is no, it's not. And for me, it's all about, there is a place for everyone. However, we need to get an understanding of what we're all capable of. What is our skill set? And if we stick to our skill set and our core business, we will all be far more successful in our journey of what we're trying to achieve. And I believe it really is that simple. There is a very, very successful group out there at the moment, obviously a repair group, and their culture is phenomenal. While I was working for Ocean Automotive and Paul Accident Repair, we had numerous calls from them saying, can you come and take this job from us? We are not skilled to do it. Now, when you listen to that the first time, it's quite a shock. When you listen to it the third and fourth time and you speak to the owners of the group and say, look, is this right? And they say, well, yeah, this isn't what we do. This is not what we're trained to do. It's not what we're skilled to do. Therefore, it's no longer our core business. And for me, Paul's just mentioned about the cherry picking. What you do have is you have these mobile smart repairers, mobile units that, might have a great CSS score and everyone's happy because it's really quick. However, personally, I find that detrimental on the industry in itself, because I really don't see how someone like Paul or someone like, one of the many viewers listening to this now can invest all the money in the equipment, in the health and safety side of it, yet a guy can turn up on your driveway and supposedly do exactly the same repair. And then people wonder why they're cheaper. Don't understand it personally. Running costs of a van in miles per gallon, I'd imagine he can do it even cheaper if he really wanted to.
Right, let's move this one on then. So we've got a great question come through. So from John Smalley, how do you feel you're keeping up with ever-increasing levels of vehicle technology and bespoke variation in technology per vehicle? Great question there from John. Paul, if I come to you first on that one, may I?
Yeah, okay. Well, we've invested in quite a lot of factory approvals as well. So, we try and keep up with it like that. But, if you just go back to the old days, we always sorted out somehow, don't we? I can remember does anyone remember the four-wheel steering Hondas when they first came out? What a nightmare they were going to be. It's hard enough getting geometry right on a two-wheel drive car, but a four-wheel drive self-steering bloody Honda was a nightmare. But in fact, it wasn't, I think it was probably 10 years later before I got one in, and it wasn't anything like as bad as we thought, because the technology had evolved down, so there were solutions out there. And I think it's the same here. We're very, very good at adapting to new technologies. And people see business opportunities there to provide us with solutions. Look how fast ADAS has moved in on us over the last 2 years. I've got a 62 grand ADAS machine, and it's very, very clever and it's amazing. But, there are other things out there now. They're coming out with screens so you don't have to buy boards. People are always looking for solutions, and with technology where it is today, I think they'll come through even faster. And it's a bit of a pisser when you get a brand new one and nobody knows anything about it, but it's not long before somebody starts providing solutions. And then of course you got the manufacturers completely trying to change things, so they keep stuff trying to go back to their main dealers. Mm-hmm. But we just address that.
Thoughts from Paul there, and Leon, I'll come to you. Lee Kennedy's just sent us a question, and this is one that's kind of teased up the session on Friday afternoon as well, where we'll be looking a bit more to the future of repair. But with so much COVID-19 taking up so much attention this year, do you feel business owners are focusing on the future or fighting fires right now? You've been involved in some exciting projects, so
I think COVID has put a whole new, outlook on life, isn't it? Not just our industry, but in life itself. And one of the things that I've seen with the shops I've been dealing with and the industries I've been dealing with over the past 6 months is that everyone's had to take a step backwards. So you've now got what were MDs and owners sat in offices and planning the next holiday, and now downstairs and in amongst it. And the general managers are now running the shop floors, and everyone's had to go backwards a little bit because times are hard for many people. And let's be honest, the work volume is down dramatically for what we actually do. So I think everyone's gone down a little bit, and by doing that, many of these shops are now fighting, I hate to say fighting fires because it's not a very nice way of a business to be, but they're dealing with the problems as they arise on a day-to-day basis. And it's very difficult when you're operating in a shop and your work levels are down by 30, sometimes 40%, to look at the future in any great constructive way. So, Lee's question is, do you think they're looking today rather than tomorrow? Yeah, personally, I think they are. Which sadly is opened up a better opportunity for myself and for what I do, because I can be there to help them look a little bit towards the future because I'm not that involved in their today's problems.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, time for another little poll, and as we segue across again into segmentation. So here we go. So do you think the market will segment by brand, i.e. vehicle manufacturer brand or insurer brand, business type, damage type, repair specialism, all the above, or it's gone as far as it will? So cast your votes now and we'll see where that takes us. I know segmentation has been something that's been talked about for some time, and obviously it's kind of naturally occurring. But there's certainly thoughts that it may accelerate, again, driven very much probably by the technology side of things. But again, are there different business models we will see crop up over the coming years? I'm sure there will be. Is there specific damage centres or damage that will be repaired? All right. So let's end the polling there. And let's share those results. So all the above, 31%, and people seem to sort of favour brand being the major driver in that, if you like, business type, damage type, repair specialism, all in there. And certainly not much sentiment to see that it's gone far enough yet. So, Paul, thoughts around there?
I agree entirely with the poll. I think it will go brand. We're seeing manufacturers pick up with more specialism and link more stuff back to them for specialist type equipment. A lot of places, even with our ADAS system, we occasionally have to take things back to the main dealer. So I think they'll be driving that. I think you'll see insurers, manufacturers fighting insurers for control of this ethanol going forward. So I think it's absolutely right. I think brand is the thing, and like everyone says, it is all of the above really, but I think brand will be the determining factor, and it'll depend how the insurers react on how much the manufacturers get control.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll come back to you in a second, Paul. Leon, from your perspective?
Yeah, no, for me, it's definitely, I did a lot of work behind the scenes with a few manufacturers, and I think I mentioned the other day, there are manufacturers out there today which are just about to open bespoke repair centres for their brand. I'm not too sure if it'll be the first in the UK, but there's certainly one that's a sizable repair centre designed purely for those vehicles. Now, will that increase? Yes, it will. We all need to reflect back on the brand new vehicles that we've all had over the past 4 or 5 years, and the magic red button that sits above your head. At the moment, I believe you press the button, they will come out and collect you because you broke down on the side of the road. The technology is there for them to have you taken off to the repairer. There's no two ways about it. If they've got the technology to send out the AA or the RAC, they've got the technology to send out Paul Smith and Fix Auto, or whoever the case may be. So I think there's an awful lot of changes coming. I think they've started. They're behind the scenes at the moment, but when they come out, they will all be in place. So there'll be no catching them up, which is a concern for a lot of people. Or if it's not, it should be.
Certainly is. And for both of you, really. I mean, Paul, you're kind of living it at the moment, if you like. But again, it might not be the answer for everyone, and it certainly won't be the route that everyone takes. But how do you start to make that move? So if you are a volume repairer such as yourself, Paul, for example, which an awful lot of the industry is, how do you start to kind of, you're right, okay, this is kind of where the next step is for us. It's not going to happen overnight. Obviously, you don't just wake up one morning, you're a certain brand repairer. Not in many cases anyway. But so how do you just start to make those gradual transition, if you like?
Well, I think we've made the business decision to try and get more manufacturer approval. So we've got 7, I think it is at the moment, try and get more. But the trouble is, some of them are so cost prohibitive. You know, they're low volume, but they want vast sums of money to be part of their party. So as a business, we have to make a decision whether we are or we're not. You know, we had one brand come and see us, and we went and checked our books, and it was something like 4% of our volume for the year. So clearly that doesn't stack up, and they're going to be those sort of business decisions you're going to have to make. But for me, I think it's very interesting. The bit that we're not really looking at is, obviously we're looking at insurance, manufacturer directed work, but obviously there's a retail customer that clangs his car. And does he use his insurance? I don't know. We've had a lot of heavy metal in here because they feel dealers are so expensive, they're better off just paying for it. So customers are becoming, you know, the prices get so expensive, the customers think they know better. Obviously, they get in trouble sometimes because they don't understand the cost of repair. But we're getting we've seen a massive increase in retail because, you know, I like to think we have quite a good name locally and everything. We're fair. So, you know, for us, it's like we'll carry on doing what we're going to do, but we're going to look hard in the local area to try and get customers who want a quality repair that they want to pay for instead of hitting their insurance and all the roll-ons like increased premiums and no claims bonus loss, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a whole, a whole different market that sometimes we're kind of blinkered in talking about, perhaps insurers and vehicle manufacturers, when there's whole business world fleets out there. There's these retail customers, as you say. You know, there are so many entities out there who ultimately need the services of the repair industry at some stage. Leon, your thoughts on kind of, you know, again, transitioning arguably or focusing on vehicle manufacturers? Is it having, you know, a whole hat full of approvals, or is it really starting to hone down and saying, right, these 2 or 3 align quite nicely with each other?
I think it depends on the size and the needs of the business, really. You know, would you be able to go and get yourself a Rolls-Royce approval when you've got 30,000 square feet? Be a little bit silly on the grounds. There probably isn't that many Rolls-Royces that need repairing. However, there is also something saying that some of these modern day vehicles, can your technicians take in all of the knowledge they need for more than 1, 2 or 3 manufacturer approvals? You know, Paul alluded to the cost of the manufacturer approvals, and I've been involved in, I won't say all of them, but certainly the prestige side of it, and going down to mainstream vehicles. So I know how much they cost, and some are extremely expensive. They really are. And you've got to be really careful if you're doing the switch, is to be careful not to be collecting badges, because there's something, you know, that has sort of, I thought they'd gone away many years ago, but it seems to be reigniting itself about how many badges can I put above the door. It gives me greater opportunity. And I don't think it always does. I think the key for me is to pick your plan, pick your goal, pick your journey, and stick to it. Because if you've chosen the journey and you're committed to that journey, then you will be successful. There's no one sat in the industry today that isn't successful, because this industry is very good at finding the weak people and sadly removing them from the industry. It's a very sad thing. However, it happens in most industries. Our one is just a little bit more brutal for whatever reason, and that's probably because it changes every other day. So choose your manufacturer wisely.
Great stuff. Thank you, Leon. Now we're 5 minutes out from 2:30, so finish time. Any more questions? Fire them in. Paul, I'm going to come to you, though. Oh, he's disappeared.
No.
So, Leon, I'll come back to you. Oh, Paul's back. Paul's back. So, is there anything else at the moment where, kind of what needs to be considered? We've been hugely disrupted this year, let's be honest. And Leon's already said, it's kind of, the here and now that counts for many. But, where would you start to think, right, okay, now we start to piece that jigsaw that you referred to back together? What would your priorities be if you were looking at your own business?
The priority, I think, as Liam says, everyone's looking at COVID, which is obviously the most immediate thing. You've got to make sure you can weather this storm, because there's no point in planning for the future if you can't weather the storm. You've got to be realistic. And if you need to make cuts or adjustments, you need to be making them now. Once you've done that, then you've got to look at the future. Does the volume of your business look the same, or is everyone downsizing? I'm certainly seeing a trend of people downsizing going forward, thinking they can manage on less, which is going to be interesting for the capacity. But, is there quite a lot of people, available staff that have appeared on the market? Obviously Nationwide demise has provided a lot of skilled staff that are available, but obviously you need to be brave to take those on, especially with COVID coming up, isn't it? So we've actually taken on 2 people who are good people we think would be a nice fit for our jigsaw of our business. And, we're just pressing on. And all we can do is furlough people if the need becomes available. But touch wood, to date, we've been very lucky. We've been able to perform, and the guys I work with have done a great job, to be fair.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Thank you, Paul. And Leon, from you?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things for me, and Paul's touched on it already about manufacturer approvals, is I think we need to be a little bit grounded on the fact that even if the world changed today, the vehicles that we all drive, and I don't drive a super vehicle by any standards, mine's a 8-year-old Ford Focus, they will still be on the road. The government is saying that electric cars, and there's no diesel and there's no petrol vehicles, there will still be vehicles on the road. And dare I say, I can't see the industry making much of a huge change that's going to be detrimental to the industry as we sit today until I'm long gone. Because everything is, although our industry, what we actually do of accident repair is very quick and very changing, I really don't think the manufacturer world is. I think it's very slow, and no matter what happens, there will still be a need for large multi-insurance approval sites, because these vehicles will still be on the road. I think it's just a niche market for some of the more modern vehicles that are arriving with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I suppose you only have to look at the current volumes of EVs on the road and things to sort of prove that point. But again, in the back of everyone's heads, I suppose we all know it is ultimately coming. Fabulous stuff. Right, guys, that's about it. That's about a wrap. Super session. Thank you so much for your time and just letting the conversation flow. So Leon, Paul, really, really great stuff. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed that session as much as I did, because we could have talked all day. I know that's for sure. Drop a message into the chat. Let these guys know what you thought, good, bad, or otherwise. Hopefully good. Huge thank you to our corporate partners, BASF, BMS, CAPS, Copart, EMACS, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Mercer, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams Automotive Finishes, as well as our partners, Aztec, the Green Part Specialists, Indasa, Prasco, and the Innovation Group. Great stuff. So keep an eye out on the LinkedIn channel, where all the conversation, we'll take some snippets from this conversation today as well and post them up and try and get the conversation flowing. Really enjoyed it. We're back again on Wednesday morning, 10:30. So keep your eyes peeled on that, where we'll hear from Chris Weeks of the MBRA, and then later that day with an afternoon session talking about the supply chain. In the meantime, folks, take care. And Leon and Paul, thank you very much once again for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers, Sam.